DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin with DreAllDay.com. I want to talk about the most debilitating emotion that gets in the way of most people's success most of the time. It's always the same thing. We just label it different things. It's called fear. Fear is the emotion that is most, if you look at everything in your life that is not working, everything in your life that's not the way that you want it to be, everything in your life that you want to get done or accomplish but you haven't done it yet, if you were to drill down, you probably have reasons that you'll give, and we get really good with language and good ways of giving a good reason as opposed to a real reason, right, for situations being what they are. But if you really drill down into what things really are, the biggest thing getting in all of our way is fear. It's the biggest thing getting in everybody's way is fear. Fear of change is what stops us from taking action. Fear of success is what stops some people from doing something that they know is going to work. Fear of failure is what stops people when they're afraid of maybe looking bad or being embarrassed in front of people whose respect that they want. Fear of just having to get out of often is just one of those three, as a matter of fact. Change, because change can be going from failure to success is a change, right? From success to failure is a change. Change in how somebody looks at you. If you thought they looked at you one way, but then you aren't able to deliver on a level that maybe you think that they think you could deliver on. So now that fear stops you from doing the thing that you want to do. It stops you from going as far as maybe you were thinking about going. And that's the thing that stops a lot of people's success. But what happens most of the time, it's seldom, and I work as a coach. I have coaching programs. I talk to people literally every single day. I have communications with people, whether that's in person or virtually, and whether textually or by video. And very rarely, I would say for every 100 people I talk to, maybe 5 of them will say fear. They will actually say that I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm fearful. They will actually use the word afraid, scared, fearful. About 5 out of every 100. The other 95 have other words for languaging what drills down into fear. So if somebody says that they're stressed, well, what are you stressed about? They're stressed because things are not working. And why does that matter? Why does it matter? Because if those things don't work and I don't get my outcome, why does that matter? So if I don't get my outcome, then I'm not delivering for these people. Why does that matter? Because it's part of my identity to deliver for these people. Why does that matter? Because I'm afraid that I won't live up to my identity. So you see, if you just drill down into a lot of the language that especially high functioning people, like high performing people, type A type people who are leaders in their spaces, they may not use the word fear, but a lot of the words that they do use, anxiety, frustration, stress, all of those things, challenge, all of those things, if you drill into them, the root of it is fear. Because every human being is part of our wiring. We're all afraid of something. Everybody's afraid of something, and the fears can move around. Some people have more of them, some have less, and some people's fears are stronger in certain areas than others. And some people can act in the face of fear, but some people cannot. It depends on what the fear is, and this is all relative. It's fluid. It can change from moment to moment. Now, fear can work in multiple ways. Now, there's fear that actually can move you forward. So, for example, there's like the story of a man and a woman out on a hike in the woods somewhere, and some big bear comes and starts mauling the man, and the bear is about to kill the man. And then this little woman who's 5 feet tall, she gets a rush of adrenaline because she's afraid that her husband's about to get killed by a bear, and she beats the bear off with a pair of binoculars. And she's barely 5 feet tall and never been in a fight in her life. That fear of the loss gave her the adrenaline and the energy to do what she needed to do. Another example, Napoleon Hill used this in his book, The Law of Success, that if you're in a house and the door's locked and somebody said, knock this door down, you probably couldn't do it, no matter how hard you tried. But if the house was on fire and the only way to get out of the house was to knock that door down, you wouldn't even need 2 tries. You could knock it down in the first try, because the energy that you approach knocking the door down with when somebody just challenged you to do it, you couldn't sum up the same energy when your life was on the line, because you had the fear of dying. You didn't really have a fear driving you when somebody just challenged you to knock down the door. And so those are some ways, example ways that fear can actually work for you. But there are many other ways in which fear can work against you. And that's the fear of, again, people hesitating, people seeing an opportunity for themselves and not taking it, or you having all the tools in place for you to be successful, but you're still not successful because you have a subconscious fear that you may not even be able to identify, or maybe you can. Either way is a fear that's getting in your way, that's stopping you from doing the thing that you know you want and need to do. So the whole point of everything I'm sharing here is we got to be able to identify things, because if we can't identify, then we can't fix it. So the first step in all of this is you got to be able to identify, all right, here's the deal, here's the issue, here's what I'm working with. And once you can identify, okay, it's fear that's getting in my way. What am I afraid of? What exactly what could go wrong in this situation that would make it so terrible? Then you can do this exercise that, and Tim Ferriss talks about this. He calls it fear setting. I think he did a TED talk on this point. And what fear setting is like goal setting, but you're doing the inverse of goal setting. So basically, what you're going to do is write down all the worst case scenario outcomes from whatever the thing is that you're afraid about. So you're afraid of starting a business. Why are you afraid of starting a business? So you could write down all the reasons that you're afraid of starting a business. So now you can identify it. Because a lot of times we have these things blocking us emotionally and holding us back in our minds. But because we never identify them and just have a conversation with ourselves and say, all right, this is what I'm dealing with. This is the deal. Because we never acknowledge these things, we can never fix them. You can't fix something that you are not willing to address, right? So you got to be willing to address something and just say, look, this is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm dealing with, and this is why I'm afraid of it, and I'm afraid of dealing with it. Once you identify it, then you can do something about it. But something that you keep ignoring and acting like that is not there, well, how can you fix that? Of course you can. And it's like if you're out of shape and you don't acknowledge the fact that you're out of shape, then you won't feel like you do anything to get in shape, because you won't acknowledge that you're out of shape. So you can just stay in a bad space, then something bad happens to your body, then you got to be in the hospital for the rest of your life, and all the rest of the stuff that comes with that. So the number one thing is first just acknowledging where is this fear coming from? Even if you're not calling it fear, if you're calling it stress, you're calling it anxiety, you're calling it frustration. If you drill down, you're going to find that it's fear. Once you identify it, then ask yourself, if the fearful thing did happen, things go as terrible as my brain is telling me they may go, and things go the worst case scenario, what would that look like? And you spell out what the worst case scenario is of everything going its absolute possible, as worse as possible it could go. Write all that down. Don't make it worse than it could be. Make it as bad as it possibly could be if everything just fails. Then ask yourself, if that happens, what could I do to get back to neutral? What could I do to get back to the spot that I'm in right now? If every single thing goes as bad as it possibly could, what could I do to get back to ground zero, get back to neutral? And then once you weigh that out, now you've identified it, it's on paper, you can see it, and it's not as scary anymore because it's not just floating around in your brain unaddressed. See, the things that get bigger in our lives, sometimes things get bigger because we ignore them. And sometimes things get bigger because we pay attention to them. And other times, things that we know we need to pay attention to, but we try not to, we actually are paying attention to them. We're giving them a little bit of our subconscious attention, and the subconscious mind is stronger than the conscious mind. So when you try to ignore something that needs to be addressed, it just becomes a bigger and bigger problem. It's like if you got a toothache and you feel it, you feel a little twinge, but you don't do anything about it, and you just let it keep going, what happens? The toothache just gets stronger and stronger until you can't ignore it, right? Now you got to go to the dentist. That's the same thing. So yes, there is an understanding that things we pay attention to grow, things we ignore get smaller, but there's an inverse to that. And on a literal level, because when you're trying to avoid something, you know you need to pay attention to it, but you're not. You are paying attention to it. You're just doing it in a subconscious way. So when you identify these things that are leading to the fear in your mind, now you're empowered to do something about it, because at least you can see it now. All right, it's hard to duck the punch that you can't see. All right, but once you identify, okay, this is the situation now you're empowered to do something about it. So this is how fear can get in a lot of people's way and slow a lot of people down, simply because you either are trying actively to ignore it, or you are ignoring it because you're not even aware that it's fear that's actually the issue. You're calling it something other than what it actually is. So with all that said, here's the two things that you should do right now. First of all, text me. So you're getting my daily motivation text every single day. My number is 305-384-6894. The company that I use for my texting just told us they're going to start changing it to like you pay based on how many text messages you send, not just for an amount. So I know my costs are about to go up, but I still like using this. So I think I'm gonna keep the daily motivation text going. I don't know exactly what the price is gonna be yet as of this recording, but I'm gonna find out this week coming up. But anyway, text me, get the daily motivation. And workonyourgame.net. I just put up a new webinar just for all the professionals out there who are interested in increasing your income. You want to get to that 6 and 7 figure level. You want to do it without having to run yourself into the ground or kill yourself in the process of, you don't want to be working yourself to death, working 80-hour weeks to chase every single dollar. There's a process of doing this strategically and systematically through a bunch of systems that I've created. Everything I do is system based. And I basically took the stuff that I used as a professional athlete and I've translated that over to the business world. I've been doing that, but now I have a free training, 45 minutes. That's all the time I'm going to ask of you. 45 minutes to get on that training. It is free, but you get a 24-hour window to watch the whole thing. So I'm going to give you the link, workonyourgame.net. Go there. You'll get access to the training. You got 24 hours to watch it. And then we'll tell you what we do from there at the end of that training. So go to workonyourgame.net. That link is down below in the description. Work on your game. Dre, all